is Michael Castellanos, and my subject today that I'm talking about is how and why the educational system of the 21st century needs to change. To start off, how should the educational system be structured to take place in the 21st century economies? How do we have our citizens be brought up to have cultural identity and a sense of cultural belief while being a part of globalization? I don't have the silver bullet of answers to these questions, but I feel it is at least important to acknowledge the existence of these questions, perhaps even ponder the solutions of. Like any good research, you have to view the history and the trends to try to make sense of why the things are the way they are. The roots begin in Prussia when Frederick the Great of Prussia created a system that was engineered to instill conformity and docility among his citizens to better control, for lack of better explanation. This made sense for the time because this was during the rise of the factory and the nation state, and at being blown away from the Napoleonic Wars, he needed to rebuild his country and repurpose his citizens for this future he envisioned. This was the 18th century, and things have changed a lot since then. And people often pick at this whole conception of the Prussian educational system as being very evil and not well. Well, for starters, it actually was the first whole idea of free education being free for everybody. That was revolutionary, no question about it. Now, the fact that the variables into this equation have changed, we may have to think about how there are better ways, even different ways, to educate our population. In 1840, a legislator and lawyer named Horace Mann adopted these views and brought it to the United States in an attempt to create a middle class. Now, his intentions probably weren't as far sighted as many might have thought to be. I mean, this is a very important system, and we should probably think critically about it. But it was a very short-sighted way, and it did meet the standards and goals just like the Prussians did after Napoleonic Wars. This was in 1840. Now, fast forward to 1892, a committee of 10 was organized and sought to standardize schooling and testing because before then, testing and schooling, if I went in to school in Texas back then and I was learning chemistry and I moved to Oklahoma to continue my education, sometimes they wouldn't even teach that curriculum or it would be at a different part of the semester, and this would hinder the whole regimen of the customized and forward the student's educational guide. So in 1892, the committee set to standardize testing, and they sought to have 12 years of schooling mandatory, that physics should be taught in, say, junior, senior year, that there's even this whole conception of middle, high school, and elementary. This is good for credentials for the employers to know so that you are capable minded, but as time will tell, access to information will change, and it is now more important to be knowledgeable rather than having a piece of paper saying that you passed standardized testing. Um, the advent of the internet and personal computer did disrupt this whole notion of having children batched together by age and paced together at the same speed, not accounting for maybe some students are better at others at certain subjects, or maybe at different times of the day they're tired, or a lot of variables went into this at performing your best, and back then they really didn't account for most of it. And now with the advent of the virtual age, the classroom has moved now more digitally, and access of information has gone down to almost zero. This has made the educational system today outdated. After the standardization, John D. Rockefeller created the General Board of Education in 1903, which massively funded for the first time that everyone should go to school. And also, the board was especially active in promoting state controlled school movement. As his business advisor eloquently put it, his views and goals of this board, he said, "In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. We shall not try to make these people or any of our children into philosophers or men of learning or of science. We are not to raise among them authors, orators, poets, or people of letters. We shall not search for great artists, painters, and musicians. Nor shall we cherish even the humbler ambition to rise up among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, whom we have ample supply of." I feel this way his business advisor put it. So they already saw it as a business rather than a free educational model that shouldn't be for profit and for governance. And I feel like this sentiment really echoes to all the elitist organizers then and today who feel that the high up positions are already filled and that the majority of the people, the rest of the people, should just be workers for them. This may have made sense during the industrial age so that the United States could grow and become the superpower it is today. However, times have changed, and the coming of the new technological age and automation may have replaced these jobs. So it is important to see how the educational system will change for this automation and technological age. To enable the future society's need not only for workers, but thinkers and leaders. Having interest to make profit by creating workers, not thinkers, being easily conformed to by authorities, molding hand, and was really the interest of compulsory schooling. As a famous teacher, John Gatto, puts it, school was looked upon for the first part of the century as a branch of industry and a tool of governance. Interestingly, many people objected to this idea of free education. People have thought that it was absurd to think that street children or working men could easily, or their children could easily learn this, that they should even learn it. Why? They should just be working. And I feel that this sentiment during the emergence of compulsory schooling created discussion associated with it, combined with enlightenment, gave rise to people thinking that deductive reasoning and classical ways of reasoning are the ways to view academic ability. Because of the internet, smartphone, and personal computer, the cost of education has basically gone down to zero. You're free to post wherever you want through various outlets like blogs, posts, videos, YouTube, or even your Google Plus account. Two examples that are best at increasing social equity and also with the use of the internet at no cost is Khan Academy and several YouTube channels, specifically Crash Course. Those are one of my favorites. Khan Academy is a non-for-profit website that teaches many subjects, specializing in math, but they have other things like science, art history, economics, and it's very interesting. It's all self-paced, so you are never left behind like in the classroom, say. I personally use this website to prepare myself for college beforehand so I could re-educate myself after being out of school for a while. It worked very well and it even increased my hunger for knowledge. For example, algebra mid-semester, I was actually having difficulty with some of the concepts, and I thought of that website, Khan Academy, that I had been using to prepare myself, and instead of preparing myself outside of the class, I mixed it with the class, and I learned what I should have known and mastered it, even though the teacher moved just I didn't, raise my hand and tell them, like, oh, I didn't understand it. Sometimes people have that problem. I'll admit I have it. And when I was behind, I just let them proceed with class. And in Khan Academy, I just looked at the things that I really didn't speak about, and I looked them up. And by the time of our test came, I've been getting better grades. And by the end of the semester, I'm hoping to get at least an A+. I personally use also Crash Course to better my experience in history. They have multiple subjects that are way more than what you learn in class, and they also include subjects that you do learn in class. And I watch these to create engaging discussion in these history classes, bringing concepts that were pretty much wouldn't have ever been brought up unless a student had external resources and I guess felt compelled enough to bring it up. I felt this increased my learning experience and also the students around me experience because maybe they had trouble with the same thing, and now that they saw my perspective, they could move along. These blended classes in TCC I feel are especially beneficial to me. Having having had been outside of class learning in class lecturing, this is the best blend I feel like of education. Now this is being adopted for a few schools across the country, but it has not been standardized or it's not universal. There is still the concept of lecture being taught in the classroom, and that late assignments should not be turned in late. Um, 1 second, please. I feel that if we spent more time on learning in a specialized manner like Khan Academy, and that we would master before we proceeded, that our educational system would be much better. It reminds me of the analogy of building a house. Say some construction workers were hired to build a house, and the inspector gave them about 2 weeks before evaluation. They began on the foundation, and they do their best. They do their best in 2 weeks. They have some muddy, wet, some mess spots. Maybe some support beams aren't perfectly aligned, and the inspector comes. They receive an 80, and they're asked to proceed to the next floor. When they build this next floor, they again not doing their best because maybe one of them got sick, another had to take care of the kid and didn't get enough sleep. The other one is just isn't performing his best for unknown reasons, personal reasons, and they continue to build within the allotted time of 2 weeks. And by this time, they don't do their best. They get a 70, but according to the inspector, it's just good enough to build on. So they move up to the next story. By the time of this story, the whole building collapses because this is a wrong way to build. I feel this is the way the educational system of America is built on today. Instead of no child left behind, it is actually no child gets ahead. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.